The courtroom was unusually quiet that morning, not because the case was important, not because cameras were rolling, but because Judge Judy couldn't stop staring at the woman sitting at the plaintiff's table. A young single mother clutched a faded grocery receipt so tightly her hands were shaking, and across from her, a smug landlord leaned back in his chair with a grin like the case was already over. But nobody in that courtroom realized that tiny crumpled receipt was about to destroy his entire story. "All right," Judge Judy said sharply, adjusting her glasses. "Let's begin before somebody wastes my time." The courtroom straightened instantly. The plaintiff stood up nervously. "My name is Elena Brooks, and my landlord illegally evicted me and my son after claiming I never paid rent." The landlord laughed under his breath. Judge Judy's eyes snapped toward him immediately. "You find homelessness funny, sir?" The smile disappeared fast. "No, Your Honor, but she's leaving out the part where she stopped paying for 2 months." Elena's eyes filled with tears instantly. "I paid him every single week." Judge Judy leaned forward weakly. "Yes, Mom. Cash." The audience shifted. Cash payments. No formal lease. No receipts. Supposedly, the landlord crossed his arms confidently. "She has zero proof." Judge Judy looked toward Elena again, and that's when she noticed it, that crumpled receipt in her hand. Not a rent receipt, a grocery receipt. Judge Judy narrowed her eyes. "What are you holding on to like your life depends on it?" Elena hesitated, then quietly said, "Because it might." The courtroom fell silent. Even the landlord stopped smiling. And suddenly, this didn't feel like a simple eviction case anymore. Judge Judy slowly leaned back. "Now I'm interested." The tension in the room changed instantly. Elena explained that 6 months earlier, after escaping an abusive relationship, she moved into a small apartment with her 7-year-old son. The landlord, Martin Hale, offered her what he called a flexible arrangement. Weekly, cash rent, no paperwork yet. "No paperwork," Judge Judy repeated. Martin shrugged casually. "She needed help. I was being generous." Judge Judy gave him a cold stare. "Generous people don't usually end up in my courtroom." A few people in the audience laughed quietly. Martin's confidence cracked for half a second. Elena continued. "At first everything was fine. Then he kept raising the rent every few weeks." "How much are we talking?" "It started at $300 a week, then $400, then $5. Judge Judy's eyebrows lifted. "For that apartment?" "Yes, and you paid?" "I had to. My son was finally safe." That line hit the courtroom hard. Even Judge Judy paused briefly, but Martin quickly interrupted. "She's manipulating the story. She fell behind and I legally removed her." "Legally?" Judge Judy said sharply. "Did you go through housing court?" Martin hesitated. "Well, not exactly." Judge Judy's face changed immediately. "Uh-oh." Everyone in the courtroom felt it. That dangerous silence Judge Judy gets right before somebody's story starts collapsing. And Martin suddenly looked a lot less comfortable. Judge Judy folded her hands slowly. "Walk me through the eviction." Elena swallowed hard. "He changed the locks while I was at work." The audience gasped quietly. "And my son's clothes?" "Our medicine." Everything was still inside. Judge Judy turned immediately toward Martin. "You changed the locks without notice?" "She abandoned the property." "No, I didn't." Judge Judy raised her hand instantly. "One at a time. Unlike both of you, I enjoy hearing complete sentences." The courtroom chuckled nervously. Martin cleared his throat. "She disappeared for 3 days. Elena shook her head frantically. "My son had pneumonia. We were at the hospital." Judge Judy looked directly at her. "You have proof of that?" Elena handed papers to the bailiff, hospital discharge forms. Judge Judy reviewed them quietly, then looked back at Martin. "This says the child was admitted during the exact dates you changed the locks." Martin shifted in his chair. "Well, I didn't know that." Judge Judy's tone sharpened instantly. "You didn't ask either." The landlord's confidence was fading now, and the audience could feel it. But then Martin straightened up again. "She still didn't pay rent." Judge Judy looked toward Elena. "Did you?" "Yes." "Proof?" Elena froze. The silence stretched painfully long, and Martin smiled again. "There it is." Judge Judy hated smugness. Everybody could tell. Then Elena slowly lifted the crumpled receipt again. Judge Judy noticed immediately. "That receipt again." Elena nodded nervously. "It's not rent-proof exactly." "Then why are you holding it like a winning lottery ticket?" Elena inhaled shakily. "Because something happened the day I got it." Now the entire courtroom leaned in. Elena explained that 3 weeks before the eviction, she had gone grocery shopping after paying Martin rent in cash. She remembered the date because it was her son's birthday. After paying rent, she only had enough money left for a small cake and groceries. As she described it, her voice cracked. "My son asked why we couldn't buy candles." Even Judge Judy's expression softened slightly. But when I came home, she stopped. Judge Judy leaned forward. What happened? I heard Mr. Hale talking outside. Martin immediately interrupted. This is ridiculous. Judge Judy slammed her pen down. You'll speak when I tell you to speak. The room went dead silent. Elena continued quietly. He was talking to another landlord. And he laughed and said single mothers are easy money because they never keep records. The audience reacted immediately. Martin shook his head aggressively. That never happened. But Elena kept going. He also said if tenants pay cash, he can pretend they missed payments whenever he wants. Judge Judy's face hardened. Now things were getting dangerous, not emotionally, legally. Judge Judy stared directly at Martin. Did you say that? No. Did you ever provide receipts? No, because she never asked. Judge Judy laughed once, a short, cold laugh. Sir, when somebody pays you cash every week, you give them receipts. Martin's face reddened, but then he said something that changed the entire room. She can accuse me of whatever she wants. She still has no proof she paid. And for the first time, Elena smiled. Just slightly. Judge Judy noticed immediately. That tiny smile changed everything. Because suddenly, the frightened single mother didn't look frightened anymore. Judge Judy noticed the shift instantly. You know something? Elena nodded slowly. Then she looked toward Martin and quietly said, You forgot what was written on the back. Martin's expression froze. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed immediately. What's on the back of the receipt? Elena carefully unfolded it with trembling fingers. You wrote my apartment number, the rent amount, and your initials. The courtroom erupted. Martin's face lost all color. Judge Judy held out her hand instantly. Bring me that receipt. The bailiff handed it over. Judge Judy adjusted her eyeglasses carefully, and there it was. Apartment 2B 500 received, MH written in blue ink. The courtroom went completely silent. Martin tried speaking immediately. That could have been written by anyone. Judge Judy looked at him. Sit down before you make yourself look even dumber. The audience burst into laughter. But Judge Judy wasn't joking anymore. She studied the receipt carefully, then noticed something else. Interesting. Everyone waited. Judge Judy flipped the receipt around again. This grocery receipt is time-stamped exactly 14 minutes after the alleged rent payment. Elena nodded. I paid him outside the grocery store parking lot. Martin's breathing visibly changed. Judge Judy caught it instantly. And then, she asked the question that cracked the case open. Why would a tenant randomly fake a rent note on the back of a grocery receipt? Immediately after shopping, Martin stayed silent. Judge Judy leaned closer. That's not something people invent, sir. That's something people remember. The tension became unbearable, but Elena wasn't finished. There's more. Judge Judy looked up. Elena reached into her purse again, this time pulling out an old birthday card. My son made this at school. Judge Judy looked confused. And open it. Inside was a child's drawing, a stick figure apartment, a birthday cake, and at the bottom, a sentence written in shaky handwriting. Mom paid Mr. Martin so we can stay home. The courtroom went dead silent. Several people in the audience visibly reacted. Even the bailiff looked emotional. Judge Judy stared at the drawing for several seconds, then looked directly at Martin, and for the first time all day, he looked scared. You threw a child out after taking his mother's money. Martin tried recovering. She still can't prove every payment. Judge Judy snapped instantly. I don't need every payment. The room froze. Judge Judy pointed toward the receipt. This proves you accepted rent. Then toward the hospital papers. This proves she didn't abandon the property. Then toward Martin. And your illegal lock change proves you knowingly removed her without court authorization. Martin's entire posture collapsed, but Judge Judy wasn't done yet, because she had noticed one final detail. Tell me something, sir. Martin looked exhausted now. When exactly did you decide she missed rent? He hesitated. About 3 weeks before the eviction. Judge Judy smiled slightly, a dangerous smile. Interesting. She lifted the receipt again. This receipt is from 2 weeks before the eviction. The audience gasped again. Judge Judy leaned back slowly. So either she paid you after allegedly missing rent, or you lied. Complete silence. Martin opened his mouth. Nothing came out. And right there, everyone knew the case was over. The energy inside the courtroom had completely changed. At the beginning of the case, Martin looked powerful, relaxed, untouchable. Now he looked like a man realizing his own arrogance had trapped him. Judge Judy removed her glasses slowly. You know what bothers me most about this case? Nobody spoke. You saw a vulnerable woman and assumed nobody would believe her. Elena lowered her head emotionally. Judge Judy continued. No lease, cash payments, no receipts. You thought that made her powerless. Martin stared at the floor. But careless people get caught in careless ways. Judge Judy lifted the grocery receipt one final time. One scribbled note on the back of a supermarket receipt. She shook her head. And suddenly your whole story falls apart. The audience stayed completely silent, listening to every word. Judge Judy turned toward Elena. You did something many people fail to do when life crushes them. Elena looked up. You kept evidence. Tears rolled down Elena's face instantly. Judge Judy's voice softened slightly. You protected your child the best way you knew how. Then Judge Judy turned back toward Martin. But her tone became ice cold again. You illegally evicted this woman. You withheld access to medication and personal belongings, and frankly, you behaved like a bully. Martin tried speaking quietly. I was just trying to protect my property. Judge Judy cut him off immediately. No, you were protecting your control. That line hit the courtroom hard. Judge Judy finalized the ruling. Judgment for the plaintiff. Elena covered her mouth in shock. Judge Judy continued. You will return the withheld property value, unlawful eviction damages, and temporary housing costs. Martin closed his eyes, but Judge Judy had one final thing to say, and the entire courtroom felt it coming. You know something ironic, sir? Martin looked up slowly. You probably would have gotten away with this. She held up the receipt. If you hadn't been arrogant enough to write on the back. The courtroom exploded with reactions. Even people outside the audience area were whispering. Elena broke down, crying quietly. Not dramatic crying, the kind that comes from finally feeling safe after months of fear. Judge Judy noticed, and her voice softened one last time. Your son's lucky to have you. Elena nodded through tears. Thank you. As the case ended, Martin walked out without saying another word. But the audience wasn't watching him anymore. They were watching the single mother holding that tiny crumpled receipt like it had saved her life. Because in many ways, it did. And as Judge Judy prepared for the next case, she quietly muttered something that barely reached the microphone. People always think power makes them untouchable. She glanced toward the courtroom doors. Until the truth walks in carrying a grocery receipt.